The next stop is netmind.ai podcast, change for London's AI world. The train is now ready to depart. Mind the closing doors.
I think that kind of judgment call is very, very hard to train for, to get to for any clinician. But even for AI, I think it's gonna be even harder, because how do you encode that into code it's gonna be very hard.
Welcome to the show, Dr. David Tang. We are really thrilled to have you. Dr. Tang is a medical doctor and a distinguished leader in digital health innovation and strategy. He actively bridges the gap between clinical practice and cutting-edge technology. Today, Dr. Tang works with early-stage funders to build compliant LLM solutions for healthcare. Drawing on a global view of healthcare delivery from his clinical practice across Australia, Malaysia, and the UK, he specialized in translating real-world workflows from primary care to medicine into scalable, compliant AI solution. So welcome. So to start off, Dr. Tan, what sparks your initial interest and how did you first get into this field?
Yeah, thanks. This goes back to way back when I was about 12 years old, and really in my mom's clinic. So I was always technically inclined, and back then I kind of helped the whole digital transformation for my mom's practice, which is a GP practice back in Malaysia. And we went basically from a complete paper-based system to fully digital. I was part of that process where I just hooking up the printers and connecting wires here and there. But what I saw was that it helped the process a lot. So instead of us printing something at the back, like a bill, and then my mom had to run to the front to send it off to a patient. I saw that kind of change where it got a lot easier and a lot faster to do things. And it's that kind of feeling that really stuck with me. So even when I went off to medical school and when I was practicing as a clinician, I was always looking for that kind of operational change that we can do in the many ways that we practice medicine. But yeah, that's really me. I'm always a tinkerer, trying to do and tweak things essentially.
Yeah, that's a really interesting and inspiring story. So basically, you took the operational inspiration from your mother's clinic and tried to kind of really get excited about it. And then later on, you enter medicine, the domain of medicine, and try to operationalize it with better, technology integration. That's great. Yeah, another question then leading on to the next question. So looking at your past, spanning from primary care to tertiary renal medicine across Australia, Malaysia, and the UK. So I was wondering, like, what key decision or factor really shaped the direction you took, because you kind of switched from these three countries, and can you give us some like experience example about what are the difference between each countries, and at what point like you made like a few key decisions trying to further develop your career?
Yes, quite a winding path. I guess. Yeah, we can start just from the beginning. I was trained and did my medical school in Australia. So that was in Melbourne, Monash. And I thought to just come back to Malaysia to practice for a couple of years. My intention then was sort of to just be able to give back to my country a bit and also be close to my parents, because I've been away for quite a while before that. So medical school was kind of 5 years, and then pre-med as well. Yeah, so I guess in my journey as I climbed the career ladder as a doctor, it actually got towards the end, I got quite burnout actually.
Which
And
period was it in? Is it in Australia that you were completing your doctor degree?
yeah, so that was in Malaysia when I was
Malaysia.
working and I was in the hospitals. It got quite lonely in the sense as you climb up, it gets like smaller and smaller in that sense. And when I was in the renal department, there's only me and another lady who is a registrar, and we had to cover the service that is kind of the size of the whole of England. So not population wise, but just like land space wise, is quite a lot, and as you imagine, it can be quite intense sometimes. So yeah, it was really challenging, and I think that part of that misalignment kind of led me to burn out as a clinician, because I felt I couldn't be everywhere at once. So I was very much like, as a clinician, we see a patient one-to-one, and that led me to kind of find a sense like, okay, maybe I need to exit. And I thought I would leave to tech totally. And I was at that's why I ended up in Imperial, and I was at Visa for a bit. And I thought I would leave tech forever, just leave this whole world behind me. So I was quite disillusioned, but after a few years, then uh, I am coming back to tech, but and health. So putting those two together, um, into something that has the best of both worlds. So it's for me, it's like the whole journey of coming full circle, where you have like the clinician or doctoring part, which is a one-to-one service, and tech is basically you build once, but you scale many times.
Yeah.
I think that's a way, something in between is what I'm looking for, where
Mm-hmm.
I believe tech can scale
Yeah.
clinicians, and that will probably be the way forward to help reduce burnout and reduce cases like that. But yeah, so that is kind of my professional goal forwards.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. So, Reflect, you mentioned Imperial. So, yeah, as someone who also studied there, I wanted to kind of ask you because that was a key turning point. You kind of switched from medicine to tech, but at some point you decided to, you don't want to go full tech. You want to like something in between. So I wonder, like, what is the core skill or insight from this specific learning experience in Imperial helped you realize that potentially you need something in between, and also AI was the necessary next step to solve the real world healthcare workflow. I don't, and anything on its own, it was not enough or possible.
Initially, my just very naive thought is tech is very cool.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to try it out and see how it's like, because of that flashy new stuff. And I did a master's at Imperial, which is a data analytics and machine learning that's master's focus on health data. And that was quite a unique experience for me, because in the course we not just have like people from the biological background, but all across like different schools. So people coming from computer science background, people coming from a math background, or statisticians, epidemiologists, or even clinicians like me. And I think that's when I kind of discovered, and this is what I also tell students that I eventually teach on the same course, that there's this kind of trifecta, if you think about it, where we have a math kind of perspective, a computer science perspective, and finally a domain expert. Then I think kind of having all three is really like the ultimate unicorn for understanding and building AI. I don't think anyone is truly able to capture all, or there is, but extremely, extremely rare. Um, so I think in the course, like, it's more of understanding the language that we use across different domains was really important. And the ability to, in that triangle, meet somewhere in the middle and collaborate and connect. That was what changed it for me. Yes, yeah, I think anyone who wants to be in AI in general would need domain expert or a math understanding or a computer science angle. Two of it would be great, and possibly working towards all three, or at least being in a environment that lets you connect with these individuals and work together. I think that is what I always look for, and that would be kind of the unicorn situation or person or team. Yeah, hope that answers
Yeah,
that.
that actually really helpful to know. And also, I wonder that you mentioned something about like connection and circle. So, can you give us some like more detail about how do you like connect with the circle of AI in London, and what kind of network you're being involved in? Also, like what kind of skill set and new like I would say like new capability you have been developed since?
Oh yeah, on network side, I think London's a very nice hub for AI. So anyone who wants to explore, there are lots of events happening all the time, literally every week,
Yeah.
and that's great.
So David has been heavily involved in AI camps. So now up to you. So could you give us an introduction to AI camp? What's its core mission and what have you been doing to move that mission forward?
Cool, yeah. AI Camp is essentially a global developers network, and it is there to empower developers all over the world to learn anytime. So essentially, we are about 500,000 people distributed across 30 different countries, and each country has a chapter that meet every month or even some every 2 weeks. So I host the London chapter along with a few other community leads, and essentially what we aim to do is have a place or a platform where people can learn about AI, learn about tech, show each other like tech demos to learn what's happening in different domains, and I think it's also a platform to let people cross-pollinate ideas, share, look for opportunities, and really core mission is just to share knowledge freely. So that was really helpful, and I'll say we had an event with Netmind where I met you, and that
Yeah.
was it's a great time
Yeah.
because that's how we meet more people and share what is happening in the space. So that's very nice. And I think the tech space things are always changing, always moving. Having that kind of platform to let people share is really what it's the best place to learn, really.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for the introduction about AI cam. And also, I wanted to know, like, with things moving so fast in the tech domain, how do you personally stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah, it can feel kind of daunting, like every week there's
Yeah,
something new happening. Or
definitely.
there'll be a drop on like new models and everyone is scrambling like, oh, is this better, is this worse? New frameworks coming out, and it is really shifting all the time. Over the last few years, it seems to me at least kind of accelerating a little bit as well. So comparing to say like 2018 to this year, 2018 was a bit slower in terms of okay, we're doing just deep learning, but right now it feels more like a technological race almost, where the massive providers are rushing to beat one up each other and release models that are constantly better
Yeah,
and update that. So I can totally understand, and even for myself, it is quite overwhelming actually,
yeah,
to really keep up to date. And that's just in one area, but there's so many other areas of AI, like world models, spatial models, text to speech, like voice models, and that's kind of all growing at an equal
yeah.
pace. So I would say maybe three ways to kind of be
Cope
in
with it.
touch with what's happening would be firstly meetups would be nice. That's probably my favorite way of doing it. And just show up at a meetup, go to Luma, go to meetup.com, look for tech events that are near yourself. Can just come in after work and say, I'd like to learn about this topic. So I'll just pop in and listen. I think that's a very easy and low bar kind of way to dip your foot into what's happening. Um, and when you're there, it's just networking, talking to different people, getting different people's opinions. Right now, one of my favorite group of people to talk with is early stage founders.
Great.
So
Yeah,
because they have a perspective of building now, but also looking into 2 to 3 years into the future because they have that kind of runway to work with, and they also have like an urgency of like, okay, how are we gonna make sure we don't get swallowed up by OpenAI. Yeah, so just sharing, and lots of people have different opinions, but it's just
yeah.
getting
Great.
that vibe of the space.
Yeah.
And I would say, lastly, just keep curious. Spin out a new project when you can, or just run a quick prototype on the weekend. That's always helpful to understand, at least on the technical sense, like what's happening.
Yeah, that's all very useful suggestion, and I hope that will be really helpful for people want to enter in this field or are already in this field wanted to stay on track of everything. So next question I wonder is more for you personally. So can you give us a concrete example, maybe either a project or story where AI stepped in and fixed a problem in your industry that you used to think was way too hard to solve? For example, in a healthcare domain, has anything and come up with to your mind?
I would say healthcare in general has always been quite skeptical about AI
Yeah.
or tech in general, and with good reasons. Yeah, especially if you have people's lives at stake. And I think this analogy that was told to me by a friend recently really makes sense. So just imagine that there's a plane that's flying and the pilot is piloting and everything's smooth and running operationally, but now you need to upgrade the engine while you're flying in the air.
That's a really good analogy to understand why it's so pressing.
Yeah, so a lot of times, people on the front line, like the frontline clinician, nurses, the therapists, are very much into making sure the service runs, making sure that people get what is needed. And it's often quite hard to think about long-term improvements when in that kind of stage, because that is really a different kind of priority. So, I think it's a complex, nuanced space, but we are slowly starting to see a better uptake and acceptance. One example I can give is recently voice summarizers, so AI ambient scribes, have kind of taken a lot of clinicians by surprise. And in fact, the uptake is actually quite encouraging. So we have like local GP practice taking that up, and even large tertiary hospitals, they also um, employ these across different departments. So that's quite a huge jump compared to just the previous couple of years is just going to electronic health records, and now this is maybe the
Yeah,
dominant AI kind of use that clinicians have right now. It is like surprising because documentation is actually quite a sacred kind of work that
yeah,
clinicians do. So writing down, and it has a lot of legal implications because if it's written wrongly, then the person who wrote it is responsible.
definitely.
But it's also very boring and repetitive.
Yeah,
I guess that's why it kind of worked. And I just looked up some evidence recently on there is new evidence coming out to show that these ambient voice summarizers, they actually improve clinician well-being. So that's really nice to hear,
yeah,
and that's like better satisfaction at work, which is really what we want tech to
yeah,
do. So it's like 22% reduction in burnout rates every month. It saves up to 1 hour of clinician time a day if they're
yeah,
heavily involved and heavily invested.
yeah.
And there is this reduction in people staying back late to like finish up their notes and documentation. So people can go home
Yeah,
on time, reduce cognitive load, and essentially because it works in the background, there's more attention to patients. So doctors don't need to be like typing away,
yeah,
and they're always on keyboard, but you actually
yeah.
can look at the patient and
Like
engage a bit
medical
more.
notes. Yeah,
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of plus for it, though it's still very, very contentious. If you ask some people, they are not uh, fully on board, and I think as a community, as we gather more evidence in that, I think we can improve and tweak a bit more to get that kind of universal acceptance.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. I think you just mentioned a really great example, especially I work with some professor in Imperial. They also focus on like the healthcare domain, especially their collaborator with National Health Service System. So I think they were working really hard to kind of increase the in-session attention because every like clinician was only giving 10 minutes, so they have to make sure they go through the record, understand patient's requirement, and also trying to give the best suggestion that they can. And I think having the AI on, the ambient AI on hand, they can just really save up a lot of like cognitive load where they can pay more attention really to understand the whole history, making the more accurate like decision rather than just spending time to recording everything. So yeah, that's really great technology, and you just gave us a really successful example. So next one I wanted to ask, so personally, when you're trying to actually implement AI, do you had any resistance or like obstacles? For example, is it technology itself, privacy issue, ethical debates, or just people resisting this change that makes you feel like, oh, actually implementing AI in my field is so hard and so difficult? Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say, well, as a technical person, tech itself is pretty hard.
Yeah,
It's something that is always changing and it's unseen. So like software wise, you can't even touch it, and it's kind of a bit can be quite scary to people outside the field. I think because of that kind of fluidity, it's quite hard to pin down an implementation. For a technical person, that's great because there's endless possibilities that we can build literally anything.
yeah,
But also, I think it's a challenge to communicate and kind of narrow down what is really needed. And in terms of navigating the constant change, kind of see it like maybe surfing, if you can use that analogy. To have a tag that is probably successfully implemented is kind of like you need to ride the wave or at least sense the wave somewhat to know where the direction is going.
See, yeah.
So, for example, in 2020, since January, a lot of enterprise are looking at agents for internal tooling, and that's driven by changes in large models that have better tool use and agentic capability. So, if you look at it from like the whole pipeline, it's like what's being researched right now, what's being actually built in frontier labs, and how this massive wave is coming to different domains. And then in the vertical, we need to think about what's hitting us and where we can implement or build something, and if it is the right thing to implement. So I think that part is pretty challenging, and that's why you always need someone who kind of knows or can navigate the technical aspect of it. So I would say not. I mean, speaking to a couple of different people across different and has trust. I think there's that sense of like, okay, we want to do something, and we know that it's important to upskill to understand AI. It's just that this is maybe not the immediate priority, and of course, the service takes into precedence. So that I guess is complicated more so in health because there's more issues about privacy, getting actual patient data, governance, whether this is ethical, and there's always issue about whether a technology, a model, a data set is inclusive enough to cover different race, different genders, different conditions. So all these kind of data biases always is come to play for the health domain. But I would say really great founders of service providers, they already plan strategically and think ahead on how to overcome this. So it's a lot of issues to deal with, but I think a multi-pronged kind of approach is really the best way to look at it.
Yeah, thank you. You just mentioned quite a lot of issue that's currently existing. So to quickly summarize, the first thing comes with tech itself. It always like having a very complex, underlying foundation of it. And secondly was like people in the tech will need to stay in sharp about what this current market needs, what is the current needs within the healthcare domain. It is really difficult to capture both sides. And also certainly is there is so many like stakeholder involved in this domain, so you really need to address all of these things all by once, like the tech, privacy, ethical database. So I think the good thing you were recommending was trying to talk to people are thinking ahead and with a very similar mindset wanted to solve the same problem. Yeah, that's a really great question. Yeah, another question related to this question is that I know like healthcare domain, we really need to kind of gain both trust from like different parties. In your field, like how do company usually build real trust between the user and AI? The user can be either clinical party and also maybe the patient or even the one who is implementing the service.
Yeah, so I just thought of something to add to the previous question. Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, so when we're thinking about, there's just so many things to think about, like regulation, ethics,
Yeah.
tech, uh, even like patient perspective as well. So how the public perceive this, and also the how this impacts the current service. Does it change the workflow? Does it make people more busy? I think the best way to go about it really is to have a kind of streamlined build process that kind of intertwines all of this together. Uh, what does that mean is I think a huge mistake would be like a company that builds tech and they build it quite a bit down the line and they realize, hey, there's a regulation here that kind of changes the way we do things, and we need to circle back and delete some stuff and readjust to the regulation. It's a really common mistake, and I think it comes out because of maybe misunderstanding of medical device regulations, or CE marking standards, or maybe a fear of saying like, oh, this is hard, I don't want to broach it first. don't think that should be the case. If like you're really serious in the space, then right at the start, like that regulatory strategy should already be in place alongside your kind of technical build process. So
Yeah.
build couple of streams all together, and that will make a more smooth and better build process. And also, so you don't have like hiccups.
Yeah.
That would be kind of the way to go for healthcare.
Yeah. I wonder what is it's great that to have like a streamline to follow or like kind of a guideline to follow, but I wonder for the healthcare domain, like what is the kind of authoritarian resources that people refer to so that they can make sure when I actually launch something, it's adhere to the governmental requirement, it can be launched smoothly.
Yeah, so it is really engaging with a lot of different experts at once. So of course you need their domain level expert.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say don't build something tech without consulting with your user first. So you really need to think like who's the user? Is it really the patient that you're building for? Or is it the clinician you're building for? And who's really paying for this? Because sometimes you can deploy to a practice and the practice is paying for it, but not the patients. There's always this kind of alignment things that you need to think about. And there's always that regulation side. So are you building it for the regulators? In that sense, it's always a multidisciplinary approach that needs to be taken into account. So constant stakeholder engagement that, you gotta like go out to the patients and ask them, what do you think about this? Do you like AI or is this like scary? Talk to your clinical experts, or if you are building in the obstetric space, you need to have obstetrician at least vet or understand some of the concepts that you're building, and also look at the regulators. In the UK, at least there's a lot of resources on regulatory consultants that give like free resources, and also the MHRA themselves have uh, a whole outline for people to follow, and also the ISO standards are out there. So that's a quick, easy one to kind of match or at least look up what is really needed. So yeah, just consider like quite a lot of things to consider all at the start.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, it's always better to start strong and keep that momentum rather
Yeah.
than getting caught out halfway.
Yeah. It seems like you have to establish all these kind of golden standards and you can keep following that, but firstly getting the authority, different party expert to kind of confirm that you're doing the right thing before you actually moving forward. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. So for those product that has already launched, like how do the company build the trust between the user and AI? Like because I think for the medical, it's like people concerned about their personal history being shared with the third party, like there's more debate regarding whether we should use AI for like medical consultation. So what's your opinion on this topic?
Yeah, trust is super, super important. Trust is
Yeah.
literally the currency that we exchange in
Yeah.
healthcare. And as I say, like trust is quite hard to build but easily lost.
Yeah.
So yes, it is like sensitive information, and I think, the expectations are pretty high in the space.
Yeah.
Well, I guess just sort of having that perspective, so not coming in purely from a technical perspective would help. I think that is probably the number one issue. So having that knowledge and perspective on the ground. So for myself, I used to be a clinician, and I truly understand that I've been behind that kind of desk and know how it feels to make the decisions or clinical decisions, the weight and the gravity of giving a cancer diagnosis, or telling someone that they need to go for surgery and this is the type of surgery that will work best for them. So there is that kind of how to say, I think it's important to kind of bridge and communicate, understand the people who will be using it, and not just kind of layer the tech on top. Say, oh, you need some operations thing, we just put LM for you to give like operations information. I think that's not enough, but it's kind of like really deeply understanding how clinical workflows are, what are the historical things that have been done, and why the current practice is like this, what are the local limitations, why certain practices do A and certain practices do B, because there are like different constraints that they may have. So it's like really building that relationship and understanding each and every practice. I think that's kind of the way to build that trust, build that long-term relationship. Like, okay, we want to work with you. We want to work together with you to make things better. I think that's kind of the way to go.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So next question more related towards like the future landscape. So the first question is like in the future, where does the unique value of human expertise lie and what aspect remains irreplaceable by AI?
Okay. Yeah, I think there's that impression that at least like, oh, AI is going to take our jobs and
Yeah,
replace, or at least
people are so
in,
panicking.
yeah, I think remember like 3 years ago, there's a Times article or something like we wouldn't have radiologists anymore. All scans will be read by AI. And you know that's pretty true. Like AI is very good at predicting disease, looking at images and finding patterns and telling a diagnosis. I think we already showed that it's at least at par or maybe even somewhat better than clinicians. But even despite that, we still have radiologists around. We still need them. So yeah, I think healthcare is very much social, actually. You know, we always need that human touch. When I think being in a patient situation, like have s- having another human at least lay their hand on you or
Yeah,
having a pat on the back, it's really very different than maybe having a robot like do
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
So is that kind of social aspect that is I would think will never go away. And also touching on the expert side, you know, AI is very good at looking at guidelines, reading through information, but we do see that it's real experts or people who are like way more senior than me, like 20, 30 years of experience being a doctor. They're able to look at a certain practice guideline and then tweak it to the patient's individual situation. So yet sometimes they may even go outside of a actual practice, you know, like
yeah.
go against the actual rules in a way. But that judgment call is actually the right one because they know that
Mhm.
in this particular very rare scenario and this kind of
Yeah.
patient, this is the right thing to do. And I think that kind of judgment call is very, very hard to train for, to get
Mhm.
to for any clinician. But even for AI, I think it's gonna be even harder because how do you encode that into code is it's gonna be very hard. um, and I think lastly also end of the day, the responsibility and liability side, I would say it is difficult to have an algorithm to shoulder responsibility of well, something goes wrong. Who's to blame? Like I think it's a bit weird to blame an algorithm,
Yeah.
because how can algorithm make things better or fix the complication, the problem? So at the end of the day, it will still be kind of the clinical managing team to look into what's going wrong and also maybe change the medications, explain to the person what's going on and make things better for them. So yeah, just to sum up on that, like, I think three main things would be human touch, that probably quite hard to automate, and that kind of very long-term real expertise. And lastly is like the liability side. These are three things that
Yeah.
would remain.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's very insightful to learn how you think towards this problem. So, looking ahead, what specific area of innovation or opportunity are you most excited and optimistic about for the future? Like what new technology or like what kind of new thing you think they are still developing might have a very big impact to kind of revolutionize a lot of things in healthcare?
Yeah, so I'm always exploring and like to mess around and tinker. So my latest thing is looking at open source large language models, and more specifically the very small, like tiny large language models, meaning like 9 billion parameters and under, or even smaller, like under a couple hundred million parameters. So very, very small large language models that can fit on mobile devices or an edge kind of local deployment. Think why I'm so interested in that is like that is really, I think, a way to kind of circumvent or address the privacy issue. So that empowers the local practicing organization to say, okay, we own this intelligence. This is not going to OpenAI.
Yeah.
And our patient data is safe in our in-house database. And then I think it also actually fits very well with the current state of infrastructure in the NHS. So, we can't expect everyone to have multi-GPU, like massive supercomputer clusters. That would be ideal. I think in a realistic sense, like we are not quite there yet. But having a on the edge, like deployable intelligence is something I'm really, really actively experimenting and exploring, and hope to push out to some clinicians. But that is a project that I will keep on wraps for now. And I think in the long run, what I already want to see is actually a kind of cohesive collaborations that happen between technologies and clinical staff. We're having like I think ideally every organization has their kind of own internal and localized, not only infrastructure, but people as well. So technologies within each NHS trust or each practice to kind of deeply personalize their tech, their AI to the local setting. I think that's kind of what I want to see.
Yeah, more like a local based device and a technology control so that this kind of data sharing is more safer. There's more like direct like interaction with the patient and the clinician. Yeah.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so Dr. Tan, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much for sharing so many valuable insights with us. So before we close today's episode, here's a quick message from NetMind AI. So the NetMind AI team has been delivering all-in-one enterprise AI solution from consulting to implementation since 2017 in both UK and US. So combined with our renowned research publication, we help organizations integrate the latest AI technology with measurable return in weeks, not months. Yeah, that's wraps up today's session, and thank you so much for joining us. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, thanks for having me on, and great honor to get off this podcast series.
Great. Thank you so much. Let's call it and have a great day.
Yeah.